Hello, I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, and this is Now.Chat, an astrological commentary, and it's April 9th. It's actually the United States Mars return. And what does that mean? Well, in its cycle, it comes back to the same spot, and it happens to be an out of bounds Mars, meaning out of bound planets are outside an orbital path of the sun's elliptical distance that it travels, that where the and so therefore it is without boundaries, and it can mean the positive or the negative, and energetically it can be such innovation and areas of discoveries and grand things. Einstein had an out of bounds Mars, and yet it can also, with an imbalanced person, have such violence and aggression that just gets unchecked. So there are two causes right on the news right now that are so vital to the United States. And one is about voting, and one is about guns. Nothing new. They've been around for a long time and they'll continue to be. But at this moment, it's such interesting causes. Aries, the sign of Aries, the very first sign of the zodiac, is all about defense and defending for causes. If we were to look back right to the mythology of Mars, way back in the Greek and Roman times, that really Western traditions and civilization borrow so many of their ideas from. In Greece, Mars wasn't quite called Mars at that time because the Romans changed everything. It was Ares, Ares, and despised, hated him because they felt it was just battle for glory's sake. And they had, I believe, not been that far distance from the Trojan War, a terrible war. And so the consciousness was really elevating to being more intellectual. And we know we have Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, all legendary sage wisdoms that we are still embracing. This is of the Western civilizations. So Mars, though, times really change. Our concept through culture, depending on the tools that we have and our experience with nature, changes our relationship and our philosophy and attitude as to how we feel about um, many things. And the gods were part of this. They were their description of how the world was seen. And yet in Greece, there Mars had a couple of legendary mythologies that demonstrated this cause and defense. He defended his sister from being raped from Poseidon, Neptune's sons. So he killed the son, and yet he was acquitted. The gods, nobody saw it, and it was the daughter who Mars's daughter that testified too, and so he was cleared. But it was defense, defense. It wasn't just aggression for any reason. It was defend, and that is such a concept, a really inherent part of Mars energy, and something important for us to understand is the times that we're experiencing. Because as I said, today is every 2 years we have a Mars return, and right now it's a very potent time. Listen to last Sunday's talk with the Cosmic Collaboration because we talked about Mars out of bounds with our panel. It's a there's very informative. Then also Mars, although he was despised during this time, not unlike Rome that made him a patron saint. Their ideas totally changed. They were wanting that defense and courage from him. But this is how one of the courages of Rome started. There were two twins, Remus and Romulus. Remus died. There was a jealousy, and someone who was defending Romulus was upset with Remus and killed Remus. But before they were born, Mars came and particularly wanted to have the good be saved, and therefore impregnated in the mythology Sylvia, who had been the daughter, it's a long legacy of another set of brothers where one took over from the other their lands and was so distraught that he was be overtaken by the children that he was going to kill them and all these issues. So as you see, there's a lot of intent of malicious intention, yet Mars came and wanted to protect through this defense of ensuring further life. And you ask, well, how does all this matter? And I'll get back to that Mars story, I hope, because this is only a short little 10-minute. But we have voting that is been throughout our history at different levels of availability. Originally, it was for white men that could own property. And then in 1920, women were allowed to vote by a constitutional amendment. It had to actually be on a constitution. And as the years progressed, there were other issues. In 1965, there was a major vote for rights that allowed people to for writing voting rights and for other years, so that for language, for minorities or disabilities, which was recently struck down quite a bit in 2013. It took all those years. In 1982, the disabled and elderly were to be made more accessible. So one asks, really, in this sense of where, for instance, in Georgia and all across since 2018, 1,000 different, not just in Georgia, but across the way, 1,000 different mail drop boxes have been removed. We might really consider that our long legacy of ensuring this voting accessibility, instead of, at one time there were states that were trying to charge to vote, and that was knocked down as unconstitutional, thank you. That's one cause that is in the present minds of everybody as a defense and a cause on both sides. The other one is guns. And we know for many years it's been a long debated subject. And Biden just recently issued some rules that he is hoping to make possible. It is difficult. We have a Senate that's 50-50 Democrat, Republican, and Democrats would need 10 more to make a law come into effect. And here, I'll give you the share screen on this right here. And actually, I'll stop that for a moment. And the point is that you know that 42% of the guns are owned by Americans. We make 4.4% of the world's population. And 31% of the mass shootings from 1966 to 2012 have occurred from the United States. We do have a violent situation going on here. And some of the steps have been to look at the language. You know, in astrology right now, we have the south node of Gemini and north node of south node of Sagittarius and the north node of Gemini, which is belief systems and communication. And it could also be cultural and learning. Sagittarius is cultural and it is belief systems. It could be quite opinionated. And Gemini is learning, multiplicity, diversity, and communication. So now is the time to be really discussing and finding out about what are we thinking and how are we thinking. For instance, firearms, these little kits that could be made. It's being suggested through the law, which is also Sagittarius, that there could be serial numbers. They could be defined as firearms, meaning that there could be background checks. They're just small steps. Steps is Aries. Steps is getting things done. There's also right now we have both Mars and Venus in each other's signs, meaning the values of Venus and what we consider as resources and the values of our hearts, we can interchange with the communication of how we exchange ideas. And since some of the voter suppression was since 2013 in June, which is just after Pluto had entered Capricorn in 2008 in December. It is at the close to the end of the degrees. It's a very potent time. In fact, we're having what we call a Pluto return, 250 years, which will be next year. We're really creating a whole climate of choices of how to go forward with our growth. And we're also with an opposition with our spiritual essence of what is unity. So here we have two wonderful causes near and dear to our hearts that we can work at to try to come to better terms. And it will make a lot of difference to think. During that, what I was talking about Mars. Okay, so at the time Romulus, 40 years later, interestingly, 40 years, went to with his warriors and suddenly left in this cloud of lightning and whatnot. And they thought they saw Mars come down in its chariot and take him off. And he wondered what happened. Well, years later, his great friend uh, was out walking and Mars came to him and he said, now call me Quirinus, Quirinus, which is a spear wielder. It means part of us, and it was of the immortals. And it was that I've been with you and follow my laws. Don't be against each other, and you always have the law on your side. It's just, in a sense, very much like later stories of our belief systems that we carry on that to give us faith. But here, it is interesting that it is the protector of the community is what it meant. And it had a word that was of man. The and the spear is symbolic as a power that replaced of power, yes, and of never missing its mark, of this great support. So thank you very much. Listen to Talk Cosmos, and I'll be back. Thank you.